Our next speaker before the break is Yuli. And Yuli will talk about her grandmother. And I'm very curious to hear her story. I'm thinking about my own grandmother. So, go ahead.
And mine's sad too, so more tears. So Savta is the Hebrew word for grandmother, which is how I knew my grandmother. She lived a long life, 89 years, but today I'm going to concentrate on her experience in the Holocaust. So this is an upsetting story, but ultimately it's a story of resilience. So I'm not going to show any upsetting images, so don't worry. So I wanted to tell you guys about this because it's really personal and because it impacts who I am today, which I'll get to towards the end of the presentation. My grandmother was 13 in September 1939 when Nazis invaded her town of Danzig. Danzig was a free city under the protection of the League of Nations. It was sort of a culmination of anti-Semitism and it commenced World War II, the annexation of Danzig. These are my grandma's parents, actually. So her family were her parents, her twin brother Max, and two younger sisters. Her dad actually went on a trip east in the summer of 1939, and by the time he would have come back, the city was already annexed, so he never made it back. So the situation in Danzig worsened over time. So at first it was tolerable, but then over time, my grandmother wore a gold star to indicate she was Jewish. She registered in the database to say that she was Jewish, and she was ultimately put with her family in a ghetto in Gdansk. This is me and my great uncle Max, her twin, and my aunt. So spoiler alert, he survived. But at the time, before the ghetto, but during the occupation, he ran away from home. He was going through puberty and he was severely bullied, and so he ran away, and that was really hard for my grandmother. They were very close. So the ghetto existed until 1941, when it was liquidated. My grandmother was in good enough health that she was sent to this slave labor camp. Her mom and her sisters were sent to extermination camps. So this is Grünberg, Germany, the modern Grünberg. This is where my grandmother's work camp was. This is the part of her experience I actually know most about. She worked really long days, 17-hour days in terrible conditions, and it was an all-women's slave labor camp. So her job was making uniforms for SS guards. She worked on a really complicated textile machine, and she actually shared her machine with a German woman who worked 7-hour days for pay, but they developed a friendship, and the woman would sneak in food, like a carrot here and there, for my grandmother. One experience that my grandmother had actually told me about was about one of the guards in the camp, and he wore really chunky rings, and that made it super bloody when he beat people up. And she never wore rings, she never wore jewelry, and actually my mom never did either. I rarely wear jewelry as well. So my grandmother's time in the camp ended towards the end of the war, when she was put on a death march with 2,000 others. It was a 300-mile death march, and 120 of them survived. Gerda Klein was another one who survived. She wrote a book, and this is an excerpt. I'll let you guys read it. Never step off the path that was leading us to death. So my Savta actually escaped from the death march. She was the first one to escape from the death march, and where she escaped to was actually the house of the German woman who she shared a machine with at the work camp. That woman gave her a bath and food, and she stayed there one night, and then she went out in hiding for 2 weeks until the war was over. So this is my grandmother. She obviously had a really long life and a lot of experiences, and it was very rich, but I'm going to end the story there when the war ended and just talk a little bit about why I wanted to present this with you guys. So at first, when I was putting together this Pechakucha presentation, I really wanted to share this with you because, just for remembrance sake. So I worry that my grandmother has passed away, and I worry that as her generation dies out, the stories will die out, and that's really upsetting to me. But I was working with Carlos on the presentation, and he told me, and I agree, that don't worry, your grandmother is living, and she's surviving through you. And so she obviously was not a perfect person, and I'm no replica, but so much of her is in my value system. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. She obviously was a risk taker. She was fiercely independent. She had clear thinking about risks and benefits, as evidenced by her decision to run away from the death camp, the death march. And she taught herself 3 languages. She read a lot. She judged people by who they were, not what they were, which comes through with her relationship with the German woman in the story, and was true as I knew her too. She had a no tolerance policy with gossip. She was no nonsense. She appreciated peace and quiet. She also was married to my grandfather, which is going to come up on one of these slides. And he actually lost all of his family members in the war. So he needed care, and she was a caretaker. She was a grandmother of 4, a mother of 2, a great-grandmother of 1. So she was the glue of the family, and I want to be like that. So I wanted to share this with you guys, and I hope that you take away from this presentation a little bit of history, a more personal connection to the Holocaust, and an understanding of who I want to be here. So thank you.
Our grandparents about their experiences, whether it's the Holocaust or World War II or whatnot. Did you have a lot of trouble interacting with your grandmother about this, or was she fairly affordable?
So the ring story was something, I guess, I don't remember if she told me or if it was just like a story that was in my family. But aside from that, she didn't talk to me about it directly at all. And I remember she had Alzheimer's before she died, and so my mom and my aunt were trying to record her story before she died, and it was like a terrible process, and she was crying, and she was throwing a fit. She really didn't want to talk about it. It's sort of like it was in the past, like there's no need to rehash the past, and that's like a very Israeli mentality in ways, and so it was really hard. And even I was just home this past weekend and asking my mom a lot of these stories, asking her for like a detailed chronology, because I know pieces from her shiva and from my aunt and from my mom, and I wanted to put it all together. And my mom had a really hard time talking about it, and it's actually my dad, so it was his mother-in-law, and he was the one who was answering all the questions. So I think that it persists being a really difficult topic to talk about, especially for people who are firsthand affected. And so I don't want that to stop the story from surviving.
Thank you. Sorry, very much. Yuli, thank you for sharing that story, because it's critical that people hear stories of the Holocaust. Second, what is the biggest way you want to keep your grandmother's legacy alive?
Ooh, what is the biggest thing I want to keep my grandmother's legacy alive? I mean, I want to share her story, and there's so much of the story that I didn't get to talk about. Like, the story of her reunion with Max, her twin brother, is an amazing story. Meeting my grandfather, building a family. There's so much more there. But I guess the best way I can do it is to try to be appreciative of life and treat people in the way that is good. And to live up to her positive qualities.
Have you gone and visited any of the places where
she was during that time?
So in high school, I went to a Jewish high school, so I went on an organized trip to Poland and the Czech Republic, and I visited a lot of camps and a lot of cities that had Jewish communities, but I actually did not visit Danzig or Gdansk. It was mostly like Warsaw, Krakow, Auschwitz, Majdanek. So no, I really want to go to Danzig. Okay. No, don't worry. I want to answer all of them.
So, I just wanted to ask,
Yeah.
we obviously deal in Chicago, especially with a lot of quote-unquote value-neutral economics, game theory, stuff like that. And I'm very curious as to how, your personal experience is very rich, human, narrative-heavy personal experience, how that informs your interfacing with perhaps a discipline that's kind of more quantitative, is maybe a little more value-neutral, etc. That makes sense at all.
Yeah.
Can you summarize?
Math. I've always liked math, so that's like not a conflict for me. Dylan's question is how, when I have such like important narratives and qualitative backgrounds to care about policy, how do I feel about the quantitative approach of Chicago? And I actually like it, and I think that it's maybe the best way to influence policy is to have it be data-driven and whatever. So I'm a good spokesperson, actually.
Thank you, Yuli. You actually made me cry. And I think it goes back to Alan's presentation. It's all about the people, not about what they do or what you're doing. So we'll have a 10 minutes break and then be back for our next three speakers.